This is your orientation to law and justice courses, specifically legal studies courses, and criminal justice or CRJ law courses. As a tip, you can expect podcasts very similar to this orientation for many of your courses, especially if I'm teaching those courses. And I'll give you your first hint for success in those courses. Listen to the podcasts. And while you can listen to these files in your car, at the gym, before you go to sleep at night, or while you sleep for that matter, whenever, wherever, you should at some point listen with a pen and paper or your computer ready to take notes. So assuming you have the ability to listen and take notes now, here we go. I should first introduce myself. My name's Tom Higgins. I am a first-generation college grad who began my post-high school education here at Illinois Central College as a student. I was a member of the men's basketball team. I tried a bunch of different majors, intro courses, until eventually I ended up in a course titled Introduction to Police Science. That would now be our Introduction to Criminal Justice, and police science is what our current law enforcement degree was back in the day. I graduated with a degree in police science in 1985. Yes, I am old. I worked at ICC. I was actually a cadet, and those positions with campus police are available now. They're great positions if you're in one of our CRJ, law enforcement, or 911 programs. You can use it for your internship, and you get paid to learn. And it was a great experience. I was eventually, after turning 21, made an officer with what is now Campus Police, was then the Department of Public Safety. And I worked there until I graduated from Bradley in 1987 and moved to the Chicago area to continue my law enforcement employment and stayed on that lane, eventually going to law school at what is now the University of Illinois Chicago Law School, where I earned my Juris Doctor degree in 1990. I passed the bar exam that same year, and I started practicing law as a lawyer in that time period. I've worked in private practice. I've worked for the Illinois Attorney General's office in the Criminal Appeals Division. I've done a whole bunch of things in my career from a legal perspective. After teaching here, I also earned a Master of Online Teaching certificate through the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign. I'll share more of my professional experience in my own courses, but for purposes of this orientation, you should know this. I've taught here full-time since 1996. I have a distinct interest in the success of our programs and our students. I'm a grad. We have lots of grads. In fact, you'll be taught by other grads other than myself from various programs here at Illinois Central College. And they will feel the same, they will act the same, they will expect the same of you, because there are decades of graduates from these programs out there working, and they represent us well, and they also provide opportunities for our students. So when we push you towards certain expectations, we do that not only with your success in mind, but also out of respect for all of those other individuals who are out there serving people in law and justice who took this path before you. That said, I'm sort of the face and name for the program, legal studies for sure, and then also the others because I have the interns and I'm working with the employers in various ways. To that regard, you can contact me anytime for questions and support regarding our programs or the career fields. You'll eventually end up with me for internships, and I definitely will be involved in helping you find your first jobs and career paths or your transfer opportunities as well. Outside of those questions, go to your instructor for specific questions regarding a specific course. Work out those concerns with your instructor, and we all work as a team, so if there is a concern, usually we resolve those concerns at the course level. I may be involved, our dean may be involved, but we will do what we can to make things work for you if you work for your course and your grade. As I said, your instructor may have been one of our former students. They'll share their respective experience and their expectations for you in their course. And like me, your instructor comes to a course with two things in mind. Number one, to see the law and justice career fields we have devoted our lives to serve continue to be served by competent and successful individuals. Most of our instructors are still out there working in the field, and they want people to join them in the field and to work with them in law and justice who are competent and able to help them and help the people that they're on a mission to serve, that in many cases they've taken an oath to serve. And then number two, we want to see you put in the work and see you earn the knowledge and skill that'll help you develop so you can be one of those competent and successful individuals. Now, you may have heard a word in there, you may have sort of glossed over it, but let me go back to that word. I said, we want to see you work and earn. You earn it. We've earned our credentials, we've earned our licenses, we've earned our job qualifications, we've earned our experience. We want you to do the same because that is going to serve you ultimately wherever you end up in law and justice. I wanted to share some program history. You may not think that's relevant at this point, but as I already shared, there's a long history of graduates, people you know. You may not realize it, but people you come into contact with or have come into contact with and you know. Our programs started off with that police science program that I mentioned. It was first offered in 1969, 2 years after the college opened, by my mentor, Roy Wright. Roy's nickname was Doc. Doc was a police officer who became a lawyer, and that may make sense as you now know my history. Police science was the predecessor to the law enforcement program we know today, as I mentioned before. The more transfer-friendly criminal justice program came along 3 decades later in response to a national trend for bachelor degrees in criminal justice. The major difference between the two is that criminal justice as a pathway is more general with more sociology, criminology, and theory-focused courses, and the law enforcement pathway is more technical and focused on providing the practical aspects of what the law is and how the law does or should be applied, as well as how things do or should work in the day-to-day operations of law enforcement. The 911 dispatch program came most recently, and it was formed to help meet the continual need for quality and competent 911 dispatch personnel to help serve the public and public service agencies like police and fire departments. And finally, the Legal Studies program was founded in 1989. We have a degree program, Associate in Applied Science degree program, and we have a post-degree certificate for students who have a degree in something else to serve as a pathway to working with the law in a variety of public and private career fields. We have graduates all over the country, all over this region, doing a lot of different things related to law. We have a graduate who was formerly the head of the local election commission and now works for a company that handles the voting machines for a large number of jurisdictions throughout the country. Now lives out of Florida. He's a member of our advisory board. He started out working in county government after earning his legal studies degree. We have a former graduate who was actually a paralegal in my law office, went on to work for RLI, kept gaining her education and experience in the corporate world and excelled, and is now the vice president of compliance for the largest marine insurance company in the world. And she's also on our advisory board. We have graduates of our program who are lawyers, paralegals, legal assistants, corporate executives. We have one who is probably going to be a judge soon. Many students who have an interest in working with the law may combine and have combined in the past the legal studies certificate with the criminal justice degree, and then they use that combination to find valuable employment while they continue to earn a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. And other students who have a college degree in other areas use this certificate, our legal studies certificate, to move towards employment serving the law. A lot of times they had that interest in the law and diverted to something else for some reason. And now they're hearing that call from the law and they're coming back to it. Feel free to reach out to me, as I said, at any time for information about any of these programs, any of these career fields, any of these opportunities. We've been around a long time, and we've served both this region in law and justice, and we have people working across the country. And I have been here since 1996, so I have a lot of examples of people doing various things. You come to me with the question about something you want to do, I can probably answer that question, and if I can't, we may have a graduate who can. Now, I often refer to our current programs as both law and justice and public service programs because that is what we prepare people to do. We prepare people to serve the public in law and justice. These programs are one of the primary sources for law and justice employers, public and private, throughout central Illinois and beyond. And as I said, we have graduates working all across the country. There is no doubt in my mind you have dealt with one of our graduates, and if you have not for some reason, you will at some point in life, whether you become one of those graduates or not, and I hope you do. If this is something that's of interest to you, stick with it and do what we're going to talk about for the rest of this podcast. So let's move on and talk a little bit about some of the tips that will help you be successful in our programs and courses, tips that will translate very much to your success in your future law and justice career. First, improving and practicing your knowledge and your skills in the law is something you will need to do for your entire career. I've been in law and justice since 1985. That's when I turned 21, raised my right hand, took my first oath, and was employed to do things in law and justice. I've taken many oaths since then in various capacities in law and justice. I complete 30 or more continuing legal education hours every 2 years as part of keeping my license. I've been licensed as a lawyer since 1990. I've been in the law and justice field for pushing 40 years. I learn something every single day. I have a whole list of groups and newsletters that I receive emails from on a daily basis. Those could be the Department of Justice, the FBI, various law and police-related resources, all of which have something to offer that is relevant to what we teach in our courses. Me learning new things about the law every single day. And that will be the expectation for you. It's just a fact. You will be expected to grow continually, to work to acquire and develop knowledge and skills that will be expected of you in the workplace, and to put in the effort necessary to become and remain competent in the law. To that end, I'm going to share some of the most important expectations for successful students in our program, expectations that we promise lead to your success in a law and justice career field. The first one isn't a word that you hear often in the context of an academic program or course, but it's a term that you should get used to, and you should start to think about yourself as working within the expectations of this word. And this word is professionalism. Most of the jobs you hope to get after you earn your degree or certificate require that you take and uphold an oath to abide by and follow the Constitution and laws of the United States and the state of Illinois. It's not a if, it's a must. It's not an oops, sorry. It's an oops, you're fired if you violate the oath. And I'm sure you've seen examples of people in the law, in law enforcement, other areas of law and justice who get in trouble, who get embarrassed, and perhaps sometimes convicted of a crime and sent to jail themselves for violating their oath. In these career paths, you want to take and start adopting the expectations for professionalism today, right now. And you can do that by some simple things. Number one, start thinking about abiding by the law. You know enough about the laws I'm talking about. Drive the speed limit. Wear your seatbelt. Don't drive intoxicated. Sometimes it's a little more basic than that. It's the golden rule. Treat other people how you want to be treated. Don't lie, don't cheat, don't steal. As you get to know the law, and you will get to know the law, don't do things you may be expected to arrest or cite other people for doing, or represent other people for doing, or be involved to help people through. If you are fortunate enough, I guess, to end up in a position in your desired career field, just stop doing those things. Don't do the things that you know are contrary to the law. And especially as you gain knowledge of the law, you're going to know more things that are contrary to the law you may not have known. Sometimes this is difficult. Sometimes it means you don't hang around with certain people who may be doing things that run contrary to the law. Sometimes it means you lose points in a class because you forgot to do the work on time and you don't make excuses or expect to pass. Sometimes it means you have a consequence that may not be pleasant. But if you develop these traits and you make these things expectations of you, of yourself, now, in this course, and you carry those expectations forward, you will get a job, you will be successful in your career, you will serve the public in law and justice. You will have a much more pleasant and enjoyable time as you do that. So make the commitment to work within these standards, the time to begin learning and adapting to living and working with the character and professionalism that will be expected of you in the law is today, right now. And experience has shown that students who work diligently to master and abide by the professional responsibility and character expectations for their respective career, they end up in better jobs with more satisfying careers. You will find success in the law if you accept, adapt, and practice these expectations for professionalism now. The next thing I want to talk to you about is organization. Most public service jobs are document and information intensive. Organizing and communicating this information requires planning and a significant amount of time and effort. Successful graduates set aside time to plan their assigned work tasks in order to make their workflow smoother and more efficient. They organize their work with detailed to-do lists. They review and update those lists daily. They stay on task. They meet all deadlines. They do not miss deadlines, and they do not need to make apologies or excuses. You'll be encouraged to develop your own systems and methods for staying organized, but you'll also be given some tried and true methods for doing so, and you'd be wise to begin to adopt some of these methods during your time as a student. For instance, experience has shown that students who use their calendars to create to-do lists, to update those lists, to plan their time, so they're able to meet all the various expectations and assignments for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different classes, are more successful when they transition to the expectations of law and justice careers, where you are required to perform similar tasks by deadlines with absolutely no exceptions or excuses for those deadlines. One of the unique aspects of our public service career fields is that you are constantly juggling many tasks at once. In law enforcement, as an example, you're often informed of your next potential case before you're cleared from the case you're trying to take care of right at the moment. If you work in a law office, you may represent many clients with many diverse and different legal matters, and while you may plan to sit down and complete a particular task for a few hours, you're more likely to be interrupted by a telephone call from a client, a request from one of your supervising lawyers, or some other task that requires your immediate attention. And your plan to focus on that one job may be put off for minutes, hours, or even days. It's imperative that you stay focused, that you stay on task, that you keep track of what you're doing, that you make sure you know what your deadlines are. If you're a probation officer, you might be sitting in your office and trying to prepare to testify for a pre-sentence hearing, when you get a call that one of your probationers just got arrested for another crime. Rarely, if ever, do we find time to focus on and complete one task before being pulled to some other thing we're expected to take care of? For this reason, the ability to be flexible and multitask, it's a must-have skill for anyone in a public service career field. This reality makes organizing and prioritizing your assigned tasks absolutely vital. You'll have a multiple set of assignments from various classes. The expectations are that you complete those assignments to the best of your ability on time with no excuses. So use your calendar, create and update to-do lists, and make the time to do the work. And when we say make the time to do the work, we mean make sufficient time to do the work to the best of your ability. No last minute, half, you fill in the blank here, efforts. The type of work you know will be expected when you get to work in your field. And trust me, your career will be successful or die based on your ability to use a calendar to plan and consistently put in the work that you must put in, so you do your best work and you meet every deadline. There is no extra credit on the job. There is no acceptable excuse for failing to keep track of the work you're assigned to do by your boss. And there are grave consequences for someone if you fail to do what you're expected to do by a certain deadline. You may or may not know this, but nearly everything we do in law and justice is dependent on or related to a deadline that comes to us by law, either by a statute, by an ordinance, by a judge, by a court, by an order. And it's not negotiable. It's not forgivable. It's not flexible. There aren't do-overs. There is not extra credit. We can't have an extension after the fact. And what's worse is if you don't do what you're expected to do by the time you're expected to do so, you may cost somebody life, liberty, compensation, justice, or for yourself or your employer, a career. And don't kid yourself. You can't treat the opportunity to learn and build your skill sets here like some high school assignment and then snap, you all of a sudden have the discipline and skills to meet these expectations because now you're on the job being paid. Don't be foolish enough to think that you can avoid doing these things here and avoid the time and effort to do your best, thinking you somehow change your approach and do your best once you get a paycheck. It won't happen. We've had a handful of students who thought they were slick enough to slide by here, and they did exactly that. I can tell you they did not slide by on the job, if they even were able to slide into one. And in fact, they may have had trouble sliding into an internship. Experience has shown that students who prioritize and plan their class assignments, they multitask and plan their time so they have complete and expected tasks, and they do the assignments on time to the best of their ability, they have little trouble adapting to the expectations in the real world, in their career field. If you do these things, you will be successful after you graduate. But you got to commit to these things now. Let me talk about communication a little bit. Whether it's by talking to clients, interviewing a victim or witness, or working with other law and justice or court personnel, law and justice professionals are expected to have good people skills and communicate verbally, in person, by telephone. You must express your thoughts clearly, and as important, you must record and convey anything you learn in those verbal communications in writing, and in a clear, well-written Document, memo to your lawyer boss, report that your sergeant's going to review. You should be prepared to document the details of every conversation, include the dates, times, persons you talk to, subject matter, and every detail of the conversation. You need to be aware of, and you will be made aware of, what active listening is. And if you don't know what it is, spend some time in the next couple weeks to look at what active listening is. You need to practice your active listening skills. Personal communication skills, verbal especially, are something that we have lost our sight of. And in these professions, you have to have personal communication skills. You have to have the ability to talk to someone. Active listening is at the forefront of the expectations there. Active listening. Figure out what it is and start to develop those skills. Writing skills and written communication are essential to these careers. As I said, most of the writing comes by way of reports or internal memorandums required in your daily tasks. Police officers, as an example, are expected to document every interaction and conversation with anyone they interact with in an official capacity. Legal assistants or paralegals are involved in drafting court documents and correspondence, memos to the file about conversations they've had with clients, witnesses, people involved in the case. 911 dispatchers document every aspect of every interaction, every second of their workday, both verbally and via a keyboard. And most every form of communication by any one of you in your jobs will be subject to review by your supervisor, your peers, your lawyers, court personnel, judges, sometimes people in the public. It reflects on you, your employer, and your ability to do the job. So take the time to plan and make these written communications something that will reflect well of you and accurately of the facts you seek to communicate. Formal professional communication is expected in these careers, and you have to accept that all of your work will be reviewed by other people. And you will, in fact, review the work of other people as well in your job. Regardless of your position, you have no choice but to be open to both giving and receiving constructive comments to these reports and written communications. You're going to practice those expectations in our classes. You'll be expected to communicate in a professional manner in our courses. There's no emoji or slang or informal text-type talk. Use complete sentences with good grammar, spelling, and an effort to provide clear and original, not cut and paste or plagiarized or chat, whatever, your thoughts, original thoughts. It's an expectation of our courses and your career fields. And experience has shown that students who work in our classes to meet the expectations in both areas of communication, verbal and written, find jobs that are satisfying in their career field. To that end, you'll be expected to communicate with your instructors and fellow students in a way that allows you to practice the forms and formats of verbal and written communication expected of you after you graduate and become employed. I have one more topic before I wrap this up. Effort. I want to end with a very frank and very clear discussion of expectations of effort. It's become commonplace for some students to expect to get credit when work is turned in late or when work is turned in despite failing to meet expectations of the assignment, and when the work is turned in, quite frankly, clearly lacking the effort when compared to the work done by students who demonstrated the effort to meet the expectations of the assignment on time and to the best of their ability. Now, we can claim it's because of COVID or point to this being something the student came to expect in other college or high school courses, yada, 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 whatever the excuse. There's no discussion, debate, or time to waste here. So you're here now in these courses, in these programs. So I'm just going to urge you to change your expectations, meet the expectations of our courses, our programs in the law and justice careers. Leave all that behind, whatever that was in the past, and commit to putting in the effort now. If you don't do the work to the best of your ability and in the required manner, by the required deadline, you don't do that in the field, you may cost somebody else, a citizen, a victim, an accused, a client, something of value. You could cost them their life and liberty. You may get yourself or your employer in trouble. And if your employer happens to be a lawyer, their law license could be at risk. You could be sued for malpractice. You could face criminal prosecution. You could lose your job. In all likelihood, lose your career. So if you stay in these programs, if this is your intent to work in one of these career fields, make this your expectation. Know it's the expectation. That's the effort that's required. In fact, let's think about it. That's the effort that's required in any job. But in this one, the stakes are too high, and there's no exception. And there won't be exceptions in the class. Now, having said that, you should also know that we will work with you on requests for extensions when made within reasonable notice about the types of excuses, needs, or concerns we would be willing to listen to or tolerate and work around in an employment situation, in law and justice. So we're talking about verifiable illness, physical or mental health related issues, family emergencies, children needs or emergencies, other family needs, death, work, or employment related issues, and any military commitments. Again, verifiable and approved by the instructor after the type of communication that would be acceptable in employment. So contact the instructor before the deadline, hopefully far in advance of the deadline. You can send an email, you can make a phone call, whatever. But get them notice. It's up to the instructor whether they accept the excuse or they allow you the extension or the grade. But if you contact an instructor after a deadline, it's less likely the absence or failure to comply with the assignment will be an excuse, just as it would be on the job if you didn't communicate with your employer or your supervisor as you should before you're supposed to be at work. So communicate with your instructor before the deadline. If it's a reasonable request and it's not a pattern of excuses, you get the support you deserve from your instructor. As fair notice and warning, Canvas keeps data for days, times, and information accessed. In our career fields, we call this evidence. If the evidence indicates that you log into a course or all of your courses at the last minute in the final day or hours before a course deadline, the evidence suggests you aren't giving the assignment in the course the average of 6 hours that a 3 ECH college course would expect of anybody, and some of our courses actually expect a little more. Legal research, for instance, for the legal studies students is going to expect a lot more time of you in the first 8 weeks. Well, that's evidence. Because we peer review and discuss most assignments, the instructor and every student in the class can see the quality or lack of quality of your work. The time you put into the course, the planning you use to make that time and to put in the effort to log into the course, read, listen, prepare to complete an assignment, and then the time you put into the assignment and your review of your fellow classmates' assignments is going to determine your grade. I'm an evidence guy. I teach evidence. I've taught evidence for, longer than most of you have been alive. The evidence doesn't lie. And the student who commits to the suggested ways of doing things, planned, intentional, and to the best of their ability, with the time and effort expected, always ends up among the most successful of our graduates working in the field. Any doubt of that? Again, ask me. I'll be happy to brag about our graduates and their efforts to serve other people in law and justice. Bottom line, if the law is a path you want to pursue, do these things, and all we ask and suggest, and along the way, you will earn your knowledge and skills in the law. You will do well in class, and better yet, you'll do well in your career. This concludes our orientation. As you'll hear me say, if you have me for class or when you have me for class, in my course podcasts, if you need me, you know where to find me.